And just like that, we are back. How's it going? How you doing? As always, Nate Mumford, Director of Sales Engineering here at RCS. Hopefully doing well. Everybody's good in your life. Are you ready to talk about some Zetta Macros today? Because I sure am. Got some really cool stuff to show you. And we're going to talk about breaking down macros, how to add them, some great features inside of Zetta. And I really want to kind of take you out of your safety net and talk about some more modern workflows as well. Remote, you heard me say this beforehand, right? The remote compound hybrid workflows. We're going to talk about some of those today as well as it pertains to our Zetta macros. So as always, first things first, want to get some housekeeping out of the way. By the way, kudos goes out to Jake for go ahead and requesting this RCS live session. If you don't know it, we do have our RCS poll that goes after this RCS live session. So, for example, from a couple weeks ago, we were talking about, did you know that you can get certified in GSelector in Zetta with the RCS Academy? A nice 50-50 split on that poll over there as well. So, as always, if there's a topic you want covered, check out our Instagram RCS live poll over there. Of course, we featured also in our hashtag studio spotlights. That's also on our social media pages as well. Some great pictures from you guys and gals. Really appreciate that there. Also, let's see here on the list as well. Very rare again, but I just saw we're hiring some in accounting department as well. So we have friends who are accountants and again want to work with this beautiful face over here. Check out our career page, rcsworks.com/careers. Friendly reminder to check out your backups, your data exchanges, and your backup paths, right? Don't forget to check out your data exchanges, backup paths. A lot of users, it's end of summer. It's been like that quarter. Just go ahead, just double check, make sure things are there. Everything's working correctly as well. If you want to check out past videos, that's going to be on our archive, rcsworks.com/rcs-live. You can check out there all these great videos. We have some really, really great topics. If you're curious about a topic we might have covered, but you don't know where it is, let us know or reach out to us, and we'll go and get you in the right video to help you out. And don't forget, each one of those videos also has a write-up as well, because, again, we are all very, very busy these days. I want to make sure we don't, waste your time. So there's a certain topic that you're interested in and you read about it and you're like, it's not exactly what I was looking for. Then you can just go to the next video and go from there as well. And as always, we are also the chats going on. Ooh, we got a bunch of chat stuff going on here. Hey, MJ, how's it going? I'm good. How are you doing? I hope all is well. We're live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Twitter Live. If there's a social medium we're missing, let us know. We'll jump on there too. MJ, I'm trying, right? This is the purpose of these RCS lives, how to operate RCS Zetta. I'm with you, man. I'm with you. That's the goal here, right? That's the goal, is to give these tips and tricks and show you how to utilize some of our software, right? Because let's be honest, I always tell new users, this is a commercial grade piece of software. And it's not that it's complicated, but we have to learn it. We have to understand its workflows. And that's what we're talking about Zetta macros today. So let's jump right into it and talk about macros, right? So first off, what's a macro? I'm going over here to configuration and my macros section right there. Again, just configuration and macros. And I know I kept my resolution a little smaller here because I kind of needed to see a lot of drag and drop space from my perspective. So first things first, you want to drop down here for your station list because macros are station specific. And that's a very important purpose. You really don't want to have too many macros that go across stations because there's specific behaviors that are tied to those stations. You want to make sure you respect that. So a lot of times, and again, when you first get Zetta and you're installing Zetta, another big shout out to our FTS Field Technician Services team. I always joke and say they're the Navy SEALs of RCS because they come in, and the line that I always say is that they always ask you, for example, what shows do you carry versus like, what are your clocks, right? Because the idea is that we have so many clients, and I'll show you one in a little bit, that, we're so used to doing these in the field. We typically have a couple little isms that we know works very well for our clients, right? So we'll help you build this as well. MJ, this is not something where we're like, hey, MJ, here's Zetta and go learn macros. No, we're going to help you train this as well. We'll help you set this up. So if you have satellite news talk formats, we're going to make sure we help you out here too as well. So this is more of a guide to show you a better understanding, right? Right, John? I saw you in there, right? I think I saw you in there, John. So let's dive in. So macros, again, config in macros, you can see here with the insert control events. The idea is the first thing we do is we create a macro, right? We create the physical macro, then we add elements to go inside of that macro. So let's go add one right now here with the plus. We'll call this, do it together, guys. We'll do RCS live macro, and let's make a lowercase a, and then we'll call it RCS live macro. Now, the first thing you're going to see here is two settings for the execution, synchronous, asynchronous, and I will tell you through 522.1 that, by the way, just hit beta this week. So if you want to become a beta user for Zetta 522.1 or for GSelector 5.1, reach out to your local RCS sales, support, wherever it is, contact. We'll get you in touch, be part of the beta program as well. So the idea here is synchronous, asynchronous. So synchronous is going to be essentially play everything at once. Just boom, fire the entire macro, everything inside of it, play it just everything as it is at the same exact time, right? Whereas asynchronous is play things in order. So for example, when you have asynchronous and play through the macro, which is combined, by the way, I have it here for you. I actually saved it for you. It's this guy right here. This is my 522.1 machine. So you can see we switched a little bit. So asynchronous and play through the macro versus synchronous and default. We combine the two of those over there, right? And so what you can do here is you essentially say like play everything at all the same exact time, or asynchronous, play everything individually in order, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the play through the macro portion of this is, let's say you have a piece of audio, something that's getting played, like maybe a sweeper or whatever it is. The idea is that you want to have fire this part of the macro, the second part of the macro, the third is a piece of audio. Let that audio play its entirety and then play through that piece of audio to finish the macro. That's what that is right there, right? So again, all these have very specific purposes. It's a little difficult sometimes to kind of talk about, you know, these different types of like, you know, what I design a macro for, how I design it, because every station and user example is different. So we really have to kind of cater to what you needed to do. So it's one of those kind of like, you can do whatever you want to do with the macro. We joke there for GPIOs, we have some users that use a macro that's tied to a electronic triggering system that unlocks the door at 5:45 for their morning show, right? There's a lot of really cool things you can do with macros tied to GPIOs in here too. So again, asynchronous play through the macro. I'll just play asynchronous right now. Yeah, it's fine. I'll just do that one. So there's my brand new macro. It's blank, obviously. You can see from the top here. This is my macro list. Now, I have a previous published macro, but I'm going to build one with you right now just because I want to show you some of the cool things you can do with macros. So the event type here, you go drop the control. These are all the options we have, all the custom asset types, as well as songs, links, and spots. I'm jumping here to the control option because I really care about this execute command down here. This is a drop down. These are all the GPIOs inside of Zetta. This list is very, very, very vast. As you can see, I'm just scrolling. It's modules. Think of it as like modules starting and then the function within that module, if you will, right? If you have any questions, the chat is open, by the way, so feel free. I have it open on my side monitor here. So if you have any questions, John, I know you know your stuff, but if let's see here, shout out to Jake, by the way, as I said beforehand, who had this. So Jake, if you're watching and you have any questions, comment in here, MJ, just let me know. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to the publish feature. The publish feature is full disclaimer, is an add-on feature inside of Zetta, one of the very few ones that we have. And that's for our podcast exporting feature, right? The idea is that we're going to take anything, going to export it as a WAV file. So if I go to just publish, I can just type in PUB, and there is a quick little search in here, just so you know. So work smarter, not harder. Don't go through the entire list and find something. Go ahead and type it in and find the exact thing you need. So you can see there's a published export log events, mini logs, and shows. I'm going to open the export mini logs because in here, I have a mini log that is titled Best of Morning Show, right? This is essentially, I've covered this in a past video, but some of the really more modern things you can do. We have some morning shows. We take the board feed with the audio route, tie that into Zetta's background recorder, record the board feed. So essentially, if you have the last spot in the spot block, we start the recording. The user talks, does their bits. Then they fire the spot block at the end of their break. That will stop the background recorder. If you want to get really creative, you take that background recorder, you export it outside of Zetta. Then you have a corresponding auto load that's tied to that folder, bringing that asset back in. So now you have 2 copies of that same file, one outside of Zetta, one inside of Zetta as well. And then from there, you curate the best of morning show. You put in some sweepers. You can voice track and say, on Tuesday, we talked about this. It was a very funny bit. Check this out. This was us talking about, X, Y, and Z. And MJ, edit our voice in voice track. That's a great question. How to edit our voice in Zetta. I highly recommend you check out the archive, rcsworks.com/rcs-live. There's a video I just did called Maximizing Voice Tracking in 2022. That's the video you want to see for that one right there. So jumping back to the macros here, I have the best of morning show. So now we have the task here, right? This task is essentially going to be, the physical execution of the publish feature. What are we doing here? So this is an export podcast. Now what you can do is have multiple publish tasks. In this one client example, they have 5 morning shows. Each morning show has 5 different destinations. It could be Apple, iHeart, Spotify, all that good stuff. And of course, what we do there is that's 5 different locations. Remember, UNC, local path, or FTP site. So from there, what they do is they have one macro, right? So they have this best of morning show, right? They take execute command, left click, drag it over, right? They change this publish task to the different location, left click, drag it over. Change it a third time, left click, drag it over. They do this task essentially to 5 different publish tasks with 5 different locations for 5 different morning shows, so that we have a macro that has 25 lines in it that we're going to execute in order, or in this case, asynchronous, one at a time. And what that happens is in one single click or in one automatic schedule execution, we can then take 25 podcasts to their default locations, execute it live in real time, and we're done. Just boom, instantaneously. It's very, very cool. Thanks, MJ. So this is a very powerful tool, as you can see, when you build a macro, right? What are we doing here? Are we doing, let's say, satellite shows? We're doing triggers and stuff like that. Are we building execute commands and just doing like different types of behavior, changing shifts? The world is your oyster when we talk about this, right? Now, in the past, what we've been doing here is, if I'm going to take this for 1 second, just kind of minimize this. I'm going to hit my control button, by the way, so I don't have to worry about docking this anywhere, right? And then I'm going to go to my hotkeys right here. And you'll see, by the way, I have a Hey Nate, run me Friday at 3 p.m. That's actually that 25 export podcast macro that I've built. And I assigned it to a hotkey. So in the past, what we recommend doing is go to macros here. From the drop-down list, find our RCS Live macro. Left click over here, drag into that hotkey there. Boom, we have our hotkey. Then I can right-click on this, do the edit the key, and I can change the name here and call this, Hey Nate RCS Live. Man, my A's today are. And then I can save this, and then boom, there's the Hey Nate RCS Live, right? Stuff like that. With the brand new enhancement we did, and I believe, what was that, 521.2, is we can now right-click on this, go to edit the key, and now under the event, there's a drop-down for macros. So now from the drop-down we have here, this is going to have our, where's my RCS Live macro right there? There's my RCS Live macro. And I'll just call this RCS Live 2 or something. Again, those A's, Nate. Jeez. Save this. Boom. There's RCS Live 2. Very quick and easy way to assign a macro to a hotkey. Right-click, edit it, assign the macro, or go to the configuration macro window, design your macro, highlight it, and then drag it over. Again, we're doing there is we're building it with the execute commands, jumping to the macro itself, highlighting it, and then dragging it into another destination. And by the way, that destination can also be in your on-air module, in the log module, wherever you want to go. So for example, I can go to configuration. Actually, I'm going to tools and clocks here. This is my one station here. I'm going to grab my splits north, So you can see, actually, I'm going to pick my remote station here so an easier access. I'm going to right click on here for 12 o'clock. I'm going to insert a control event that brings that window over here. I have my macro down below. I can choose my macro. I have to pick my station. See, remote station 1. If that macro was RCS hot AC, I would take it, left click, drag it over, boom. It's now automatically scheduled into my clock structure. The clock structure is typically for news talks. And you know what? Let's just dive into it. Speaking of news talks, this is a client I have right here. So this is one of our hubs we have in Seattle. They allowed me to have their database over here. I love showcasing this because it shows you exactly what's going on, that how our clients interpret it. And you can see they have a big hub of the Seattle Mariners. They got, let's see, CBS News, Premier, ESPN, Fox News, and a whole bunch more. I just grabbed the ESPN side to show you what's going on over here. I'll expand this, make this nice and clean. And then so you can see a lot of this here. So this is what this ESPN satellite macro is doing. Look at all these XU commands we have in here. And I believe this is synchronous, if I'm not mistaken. And so it's a macro, ESPN satellite, obviously assigned to WRCS FM. We're going to do a sequencer, set all routes off except the station WRCS FM. We're going to have the set the mode for network. I'm moving very quick here just because I just want to just show you and keep on going on. Set the split master and network route. That is going to be essentially for our internet stream. There could be a certain content or spot block that can't play on the internet stream. So we have a Zetta split to break away and play 2 different sources, one for the FM, one for the internet stream. Set the local route, set the shift so that this is the ESPN nor board op shift. So any type of audio that is assigned to the shift, ESPN no board op will play during the show because the macro told us to do that. Then there's the set spot block fill category, set sequencer ATM live assist mode. That's a very specific Zetta behavior. And boom, we're in now ESPN satellite mode, content, shift, internet splits, all that good stuff. And that's all done via a macro, right? Now, in this case here, I am working in the clocks window. This is a news talk station. So we are going to operate in the clock structure as designed by Zetta. So I go to Zetta clocks, Sunday, WRCS FM. I build the macro, assign it in here. Notice there's a time ETM stamp attached to it. This case is a hard because it's a news talk. So exactly at 12:00:00, fire this macro, which will then fire all these commands at the same exact time for synchronous or asynchronous at one at a time. Make sense? Now, if you're, let's say with GSelector, right? If you have GSelector tied to your system, that's what I have here in RCS Hot AC. I'm going to jump to my GSelector for a quick second. We're at clocks definition. I went ahead and opened up my little clock element selection over here. And there's a control field right here. I'm going to expand that control field. And you can see there's my RCS live macro we just created on the fly. So now what I do is I take that macro, left click, drag it over here. There's my control event, set a macro, or I can always just say, just jump on here, change it to a, where's control event here? Control event. And you can see from the drop down, there's my macros here. Again, RCS live macro, just like that. So if you have GSelector integration, you can always schedule macros. If you're a news talk with Zetta only, we can use the clocks to schedule them, or we can drag and drop them into our hotkeys as well. And that's a very powerful tool. Remember, these hotkeys are both audio and non-audio triggers. Think about that for a second. So I had this little right here. I'll activate my hot spare. These are my hot spares. Remember, with hot spares, we don't move machines. We identify play devices and we point the sequencer to the different play device, right? So I'm on 1A, 1B, 1C. We'll keep it simple and say that's in the on-air control studio, just pots 1, 2, and 3. Now I'm going to tell you right now, I have a 9A, 9B, 9C. Different play streams, different stream groups, all that good stuff. That's going to be on pots, we'll just say 7, 8, 9 in the production room. So now I have my little activate hot spare right here. Click on this macro. That goes from 1, 2, 3 to 9A, 9B, 9C. And I have now changed my play devices, arming it and triggering it, right, from my prod studio using my Zetta hotkeys. If I want to deactivate my hot spare, I click this again, and boom, I'm just changing the hot spare from there. And there's my now back to 1A, 1B, 1C. But what about our friend on Zetta to go? Yeah, right? Remote, compound, hybrid workflows. We start in Zetta. We build it in Zetta. We can then fire from hotkeys. Where are the hotkeys available? They're available on Zetta to go. So you can see I'm in auto mode right now in Live Assist. I'm going to bring this down just a little bit. Remember, Zetta to go is dynamic. So this is my Zetta to go. I'm using Chrome right now, but of course, it's just a URL with a VPN. So Chrome, Firefox, Safari, Edge, Mac, PC, iPhone, Android, all of that good stuff. You remember my spiel. I'm going to go here. I have this little enable the board Live Assist. Click on that for my Zetta to go. Ooh, look at that. Live Assist. Live Assist. How cool is that? And I'll switch it back to leaving for the day in auto mode. Boom. Auto mode. Auto mode. Look at that. So what's stopping you? Oh, and by the way, it is dynamic too. Notice how Hey Nate Live, RCS Live 2, right? Yeah, dynamic. Really, really cool stuff. So who's to say you can't have a macro hotkey bank that's going to fire all of your macros, right? And those can be for news talk satellites. You can change those and have different different routes, breaking news, returning to programming, stuff like that. Some really, really cool things you can do. Again, the world's really your oyster here, right? What can a macro do? Well, what do you want it to do? Assign a GPIO to a macro. That macro could be assigned to a clock, a schedule, a GSelector, a hotkey, Firedex Zetta to go. There's a lot of things you can do here by having remote, compound, hybrid workflows, right? See, I'm not too crazy. Just sounds a little crazy, right? Let's see here. Any questions here? Gavin, any questions? Danny, any questions? Raris, Kovacs, hope I said that right. Mark, any questions? Let me know, guys. I'm here to help out. So again, we're talking about Zetta macros, how to build them, right? We talk about asynchronous, which is everything like one at a time, synchronous all together. You can schedule it in GSelector. You can fire it in Zetta to go. Also, by the way, too, you can also put this in if I have Live Assist. Where am I in my log? Hit my home button here, my Zetta to go. Where am I? Let's see here. There we are. I can also go here. I can also drag it into the log if I wanted to as well. If I want to fire that in there. Something like this. I can drag it in. So there's an execute command. It's very simple. I'm in Live Assist. I'm going to fire this next element back in auto mode because I scheduled this to drag and drop into log structure. That might pertain to you. For example, if you have, let's say, some breaking news, the top of the hour or whatever it is you want to go, but you're busy doing something else, you might be able to drag and drop that into your Zetta to go to execute that if you wanted to. Some cool stuff there as well. Just be careful. Obviously, it depends on what these are, what you want to do. If you're like, hey, change all the audio routes and do all these behaviors, it's going to do exactly what you want it to do. So just be aware about that as well. Let's see here. Boom. We talked about adding it to a clock, adding it to a hotkey. One thing we didn't talk about just yet is the GPIO mapping inside of Zetta, configuration and system. If I jump here and go to my command mappings, this is where you would go and assign your GPOs or GPIs rather. So for example, you have, let's say, a contact closure from a satellite. You want that to fire a particular macro with a GPI and a line of rotation or imaging, whatever it may be. It could be like starting a spot block with a closure, stuff like that, right? You want to do that here in the command mappings. That's config, system, command mappings. You assign that GPI to the macro here, save it so that when a contact closure comes in, it's going to be saved and it'll be triggered, right? Because, just because it's a contact closure doesn't mean it doesn't do anything. There's no function to it until we assign it to a command mapping. So that's how we get away with that for satellite shows. Contact closures, assign it to a GPI for command mappings with a macro with execution. Boom, and we're good to go there as well. Going through last call for questions, by the way, because I'm going to get ready to wrap up. I know you guys have some questions, so please, if you have them, type them in right now. I'll get to them right now. Hey, Danny. Awesome. Checking in from the UK. Absolutely love it. Thank you so much for checking in. Really appreciate it. Let's see here. Oh, the one really cool thing. Let's just say you have some type of legal ID or an EAS sweeper or something along those lines. This is really, really cool. I love this. I don't think enough users do this. I'm going to double click on one of my assets here, make this nice and big. By the way, a little pro tip. If you left click and drag, see that little docking hotkey bar there? I can hit control and that goes away. I don't know if you can see it with the stream or not, but it's a really powerful tool because, let's be honest, there's times we don't want to dock things inside of Zetta. Hit the control button, makes your life nice and simple, right? So let's just say this is an EAS sweeper. Something's going on. We want some kind of behavior here, whatever it is. I'm going to click right there in that purple line, jump to the second tab over here, add a brand new little kind of control point from a queue point, I should say. I'm going down to my custom down here at the bottom. And now I have this, we'll just call this RCS Live macro test. And wow, for the fifth time, hit those A's. Now we have, once again, these extra commands, right? That big, long list we talked about, right? So who's to say we can't type in macro? And now we have a sequencer, and we have asynchronous and synchronous. We'll do the asynchronous macro. We'll choose our station. Remember, because macros, we really want to make sure they're station specific for specific behaviors, right? And now look at this. Boom, boom, boom. And what do we have there? We have our RCS Live macro that you and I just created together, right? There's our RCS Live macro. I'll hit OK on here. Now I have an RCS Live macro test. Life is great. Right at this moment, at 11 seconds point or 11.9 seconds, we're going to fire this macro, RCS Live macro. And by the way, this is you know what this is? This is a reoccurring weather or traffic or whatever it is that always gets overwritten. Every hour, this element gets overwritten, right? If only there was some way to, locked. Done. So now, all I did there, by the way, was just right click, hit the locked button over here. So all I did there was essentially say at 11.9 seconds on this piece of audio, on this asset inside of Zetta, you're going to fire that RCS Live macro test. You're going to do it every single time, no matter if the audio gets overwritten, right? We're going to always, at 11.9 seconds, fire that macro, which is such a powerful tool when you think of it. Right? Just what can you do there? Well, what do you want to do? What's that macro doing? Right? We can execute so many things. And remember, this macro is just tied to an ETM. It's not an ETM, I'm sorry, an execute command. And so that's just such a long list, right? Configuration, macros. Go over here, expand this, pick your station, RCS hot AC. There's a master list up here of all of your macros. We have an execute command. Look at all these things you can do. Like, there's so many things. Z player, right? I can open up a Z player if I wanted to. Sequencer, something like this. Look, I turn on demand recordings, turn off on demand recordings. You can do manual on off background recording with your hotkey with a macro assigned to it. Stuff like that. Like Sam is saying, I got the first half of this. So like Sam was saying, so they use their macros for live metadata send for RDS on our news station. Is there a command to send the RDS data to the split station associated with it? That I would have to see. Good question, Sam. Good question. Off the bat, my brain goes to have two different ones, one for the split station, one for that one. I'd have to look into that one if you can do one trigger for both. I think there's got to be a way. There's got to be we can do that. I'll look into it and see, but there's got to be something interesting along those lines. But you can see, as Sam was saying, they use their macros for live metadata send. And by the way, that's just if you go over here, live metadata send. It's a way of saying, okay, for the current station, right, hot AC, and then do a manual and do whatever it is, type in the title RS composer, overwrite the RDS and go from there. I'm wondering, Sam, I'm just thinking on top, call support. Support's always here to help out, obviously. Support at rcsworks.com or give the number off your local support. They're absolutely phenomenal, as you know already. But I wouldn't be surprised if you create a macro with two of the execute commands. And then on this one here, you do essentially, there's RCS hot AC. Let's go to RCS Live here for a second, see if we can't. RCS Live macro. Exact command. So there's 1110. We'll just do a test 1 and 2, and then drag this in. Remember, we're dragging it in, so it's nice and clean, nice and neat. And then maybe do something like this. We do RC, then do a top 40, right? Take that same one, drag it in. Oh, I gotta save it. That's why. Oop, my bad. Boom. Yep, I want to delete that one here. Go back, change this to top 40. Save it. Drag it in. Boom. There's top 40. So Could we do that? I think I want to double check the behavior of that, but I believe that's probably what we can do, Sam, is just kind of compound that using different stations for the metadata send. I will say some of those executables are specific to stations versus can be split. So just be careful of what you want to do. And again, as I said, throw an email to support rcsworks.com. They'll be definitely more than happy to help you out there or do a test or what they can do there as well. Right? Cool stuff. Fun with macros. I feel like this is like that Saturday morning cartoon, right? Fun with macros. All right, last call for questions here. Just to recap, we're talking about our RCS Zetta macros. Again, thanks to Jake for the idea here. Don't forget about our RCS live poll coming up after this on our social media. We have synchronous versus asynchronous. So again, going over here, I've had a brand new one. Synchronous, everything all at once. Asynchronous is going to be one at a time in order. And we have a play through the macro if there's a piece of audio in there. So we can fire execute command, piece of audio, wait till the audio is over, and then we play through the rest of the macro and go from there. If you want to schedule it, you can left click, drag, and drop it anywhere you want. We have that brand new feature in the hotkeys where I can edit that key. So I'm going to close this, not save my changes, right click on here, edit key, macro from that drop down, choose your macro from this list here, or go to GSelector. You can see there's a control option in your clocks. You can see all your macros inside your GSelector control events on that side. Execute them remotely from Zetta to go as well. Assign them here, right? Activate hot spare, 1, 2, 3, 9A, 9B, 9C. Deactivate hot spare, 1, 2, 3. Jump to your Zetta to go here as well. I can, let's say, enable the board. There's my live assist. Put it back over here. Oh, yeah, I know what they did there. I moved it around. I can go from there too. So a lot of really cool stuff you can do in here in regards to remote hybrid workflows there as well. And don't forget to send out your photos over to marketing at rcsworks.com for hashtag Studio Spotlight as well. Cool stuff. Last call for questions here. I'm waiting. I'll give it kind of 5 seconds here. If not, I will see you next Thursday and every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern for another RCS Live. Don't forget to check out the archive, as always, over at rcsworks.com/RCS-live. Like MJ, that would help you out with the maximizing your voice tracking in 2022. That's going to really, really help you out. Hopefully blow your mind there as well. I'm Nate. I will see you next Thursday at 11 a.m. Have a fantastic week.